Hey folks, I get it. When you're about to upgrade the backbone of a network, the decision feels a lot like buying a new car. You want something that'll get you where you need to go without draining the budget, but you also don't want to end up stuck with a piece of hardware that looks impressive on paper and then melts under real traffic. That's the exact spot I was in last month, trying to figure out whether a high-end router like the Mikrotik CCR1072 Cloud Core router would actually solve the bottlenecks my small ISP was seeing, or if I was just adding a pricey trophy to the rack. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of environment where the CCR1072 starts to make sense. This is a 72-core Telera CPU board, built around a 1.2 GHz clock. For most home users or even a typical office LAN, that's overkill. You'll never saturate those cores with a handful of workstations and standard SAS traffic. But if you're running a multi-tenant data center, a wholesale ISP, or a large campus with heavy video streaming, VPN termination, and a mix of Layer 2 and Layer 3 services, the extra headroom becomes noticeable. The router offers 8 10 gigabits per second SFP plus ports, each wired directly to the CPU without any shared bus that could become a choke point. That architecture is the main reason the CCR1072 keeps its price justification. You're basically buying a chassis that can handle back-to-back 10 gigabits per second streams on multiple interfaces at once. Now, who should actually hit the buy button? If you're already operating at or above 40 gigabits per second aggregate traffic and you've been using a couple of older CCR series boxes to split the load, this model will let you consolidate everything into a single platform. The two hot-swap power supplies are a nice safety net. You can replace a PSU without pulling the plug, which matters when you can't afford downtime. The M.2 slots for SSDs are perfect for logging or running a small captive portal service locally, and the USB ports give you flexibility for future expansion, say, a third-party traffic analysis tool that needs a dongle. Basically, any network that needs high throughput, low-latency routing with the ability to add storage or peripheral devices on the fly will benefit. On the flip side, you should skip this router if your peak traffic never exceeds a few gigabits per second, or if you're a home lab enthusiast who only needs a couple of 1 gigabit per second ports for test environments. The price tag is steep compared to entry-level 10 gigabits per second routers that could still serve you well. Also, if you don't have the expertise to maneuver the Mikrotik router OS, you might end up wrestling with configuration quirks that could have been avoided with a more plug-and-play solution. The OS is powerful, but its learning curve is real, and misconfigurations can quickly turn a high-performance device into a bottleneck. Let's dig into the practical strengths I saw when I actually set this up in a test rack. First, the raw throughput. I ran a perf3 across two of the SFP Plus ports with a 10 gigabits per second NIC on each end, and the router sustained close to 9.8 gigabits per second without dropping packets, even when I added a second parallel stream. That's the kind of result you need when you have multiple high-definition video feeds or bulk data transfers happening simultaneously. The hot plug power supplies also proved their worth. During a scheduled maintenance window, I swapped one PSU out while the other kept the unit alive, and the routing didn't hiccup, a pleasant surprise for anyone who's ever seen a router reboot mid-traffic. Another hidden advantage is the dual M.2 slots. In a previous project, I used one SSD to host a small ClickHouse instance for logging network stats, and the other to keep the router OS images separate from the bulk storage. The separation kept the OS responsive even when the logging database consumed a lot of I/O. The MicroSD slot is handy for quick backups. I could snap a clone of the configuration and spin up a replacement in under 10 minutes. For any ISP that has to meet compliance standards for config retention, that's a tangible time saver. Now, the weaknesses. The biggest practical downside is the heat. With all those cores running at full tilt, the unit gets warm quickly enough that you'll want to ensure good airflow in your rack. The stock heatsink does the job, but in a cramped 19-inch cabinet you might consider adding a dedicated fan or moving the router to a more ventilated spot. It's not a showstopper, but it's something to plan for. Also, the SFP Plus ports are purely optical. You'll need the right transceivers if you're trying to bridge to copper 10 GBE, something that can add a few extra dollars to the install bill. Another point to keep in mind is licensing. Mikrotik's router OS comes in several tiers, and the CCR1072 ships with a higher level license to unlock its full feature set. That license isn't cheap, and if you're only using basic routing, you might be paying for capabilities you never touch. Make sure you